Our biggest fear before we started looking at homes, well, mine and his were a little different. Mine was definitely having all the upfront money, the money that you had to have before you even started looking at homes. And Yolanda was very helpful in telling us each list of where, like around how much money we needed for each item. His biggest fear...
we were trying to find a home in a market that it's really hard to find a home and settle on a home. And my biggest fear was that our lease was going to end up being expired before we would finish and be able to move in on a home.
Yeah. We didn't want to move in with one of our parents or one of our friends while we were still trying to find a home.
Like we wouldn't want to end our lease in April and then not be able to move into a home until June or July and have that in-between period where we're just kind of up in the air. Advice that I would give a first-time home buyer, this is our first time buying a home, so I would suggest finding a realtor that is first and foremost educational. If they don't scare you a little bit in the very beginning as a first-time home buyer of all the things that you need to get done, all the things that you need to pay for, if you're not scared a little bit, they're not doing their job. They have to educate you enough, and if they're not doing that, then it's gonna, you're gonna be very frustrated and stressed, and you're not gonna develop that trust that when you hit those moments of insecurity or you're stressed and you're freaking out, and you have that moment where you text them and say, "Is everything okay?" and they come back and they say yes. If you have that trust, it's the moment.
So definitely trust in making sure they're going to educate you beforehand, because you don't know what you're walking into until you've started it, and I think even then you're still kind of mind blown every step of the way of how to buy a home.
So as far as the education purpose, Yolanda, right off the bat, we had, it was during COVID and we couldn't really meet in person, so we had our Zoom calls right off the bat. And, right from the beginning, it was education on how much money that you would need up front for your earnest fee, your down deposit, your closing costs, down the list of everything that she would educate you on. And that the way that homes are sold in North Carolina, that was one of our biggest surprises, was you buy as is. And knowing that going into it and being educated of what you're walking into was a big changing point for us, because when we went to look for homes, we were like, okay, well, that's going to stay the way that is, and we know that that's going to come out of, we have closing costs, earnest fees, down deposit, all the stuff that she told us about that we would have to have up front, on top of any things that you would have to fix, because they could sell it as is. So having the education that we had right from the beginning, the first time we spoke to her and she went over the whole buying list, the whole contract that we'd have to go through, the definitions of things that we had no idea what they were, right off the bat. And it scared us a little bit.
Yeah.
It did scare us a little bit, because we didn't know. As first-time home buyers, you think, you do a little research and you say, you got closing costs or down deposit. That's those are the biggies, but you don't realize that you have all these little things, and they add up. What I would change or expect better in the future, I work nights, and I thought about this, from our first time interacting to all the way until last night. I could not think of a single thing that I would want her to improve upon, what differently. I just could not think of anything, and there are things in the market that are out of her control. The market, the specific homes on the market, how quick the appraisal could get done or the inspection could get done. None of that is, that stuff is going to be stressful, but that's not in any of her control. But there was nothing. And it's very frustrating, because when you're looking on Amazon, you see like a 1-star or a 5-star, you're thinking, oh man, like they either know the person or they had a really bad experience. But I generally would give her a 5-star rating. I just could not think of anything that would deduct down to a 4-star rating. So this is a general and honest opinion of a first-time home buyer. Yeah. I could not change anything.
She educated us and was open and honest with us and answered all of our questions, because we had a lot of questions. So it was a great experience, really. We had a great experience with Yolanda as our realtor. We would highly recommend for other people to use her to find a home. If you don't really know what you're going into, it's great, because from step one, she won't show you a house without talking to you about what goes into this process. She from the very beginning helped us understand what we really needed to do in this market in buying a home.
Oh yeah, right from the get-go, we were educated, and unless we knew what we were getting into, we weren't going to go see a home. And we talked it over. You know, from this point forward, as long as she's in real estate, if we're buying or selling a home, you know, she's the person that we're going to. I couldn't expect anything better, and I think that if we had a different realtor, our experience would be a lot worse. You know, I've heard stories from other people of experience that they've had, and I'm like, dang, that was not our experience.
Nah.
And you know, in the future, when, you know, this eventually we do sell this home and we move to something bigger or better, when we start our family, we're definitely going to contact her and go through her again, because we know that we're going to get educated on the selling portion of it now, because I'm sure that's a big difference from buying and selling, and I couldn't want anyone different that wouldn't educate us to that point of, we know what we need to do before we put their house on the market so we can get the best bang for our buck.